What if you had a limitless mind? What if I told you the movie Limitless with Bradley Cooper was a documentary? Not the pill. The pill is fake, but everything that the pill unlocks, the perfect memory, the language learning, the pattern recognition, the version of Bradley Cooper who walks into every room as the smartest person in it, that's already inside you right now. You just don't have access to it. And there are people spending billions of dollars making sure you never do. Let me explain. You've probably seen the movie Limitless. Bradley Cooper plays a struggling writer who takes a pill called NZT, and suddenly he's remembering every book he's ever read, learning languages overnight, seeing patterns nobody else can see. He writes a novel in 4 days, makes millions in the stock market, becomes the smartest person in every room that he walks into. And the whole time you're watching this movie, there's a voice in the back of your head saying, "What if that were real?" Well, here's the thing, it kind of is. See, you have two minds. Your conscious mind, this is the one that you're using right now to follow the words that I'm saying to you. It's slow, it thinks one at a time. It doubts, it gets tired. If you've ever felt mentally exhausted after a long day, that's your conscious mind hitting its ceiling. And the ceiling is pretty low. Then you have your unconscious mind. Your unconscious is running right now. It's beating your heart, digesting your food, monitoring every sound in the room, processing emotions that you haven't even noticed yet, working on problems you forgot about 3 days ago, all at the same time. Without effort, it never stops, it never sleeps. And your unconscious has perfect memory. Everything you've ever seen, heard, read, or experienced is stored in your unconscious mind. You don't forget anything, you just lose conscious access to it. And guess what? Under hypnosis, people can recall conversations from decades ago, word for word. They describe rooms they visited as children in perfect detail. That means that the information was never lost. It's just that the door to that information was closed. Your unconscious also perceives mathematical relationships instantly. That's how child prodigies work. They don't have to calculate the math problem, they just see the answer. So, the same way that you see color, they see the answer. You don't compute red, you just see it. The unconscious sees truth in the same way. So, your unconscious mind has perfect memory, infinite processing, instantaneous perception, and it's running in you right now. That raises a question: if you have all that, why can't you access any of it? And this is where we go back to the movie. Most people watching Limitless assume that NZT is giving Bradley Cooper some new powers. You know, you take the pill, you get smarter, and it adds something. They think it adds something to him that wasn't there before. For example, there's a scene in the movie where it's time for him to fight some guys, and he doesn't know how to fight. At least he doesn't think he knows how to fight. So what happens? He taps into Bruce Lee movies and fighting movies he watched years ago, fight scenes from TV shows that he saw as a kid. All that information was already stored in his unconscious mind. He just couldn't access it consciously until NZT seems to thin the barrier between his conscious mind and his unconscious mind. And then suddenly, everything that was already in there comes rushing through. So his unconscious already knew how to fight. He didn't have to learn, he just got access to it. It's the same with the novel that he writes, it's the same with the languages that he learns, same with the stock market patterns that he spots. Nothing is actually being added. The pill isn't like installing a new software, it's sort of removing the firewall. And Mike Hockney wrote about this in an article not too long ago. He argued that your unconscious is actually doing all the thinking, which was a brilliant idea. The idea that your conscious mind doesn't actually solve problems, it just formulates the question and experiences the answer. So all the real cognitive work happens in the unconscious, and your unconscious isn't just solving the problem, it's serving up the right answer. That's why you've had the experience of trying to remember a name, giving up, forgetting about it entirely, and then an hour later it just pops in your head. Your unconscious was working on trying to find that answer the whole time, and it delivered the right answer when it was ready. Your conscious mind didn't do any of the work to get the answer. It was just waiting until the unconscious served it the right one. So when you really think about it, NZT isn't adding anything. It's just letting the signal through that was always being broadcast, which means if the broadcast is already playing inside you, what would it take for you to tune in? Think about this. Have you ever had your best idea in the shower, or had the solution to a problem hit you while you were driving, or ever woken up with with the clarity that wasn't there when you went to sleep? That's your unconscious pushing an answer up through a gap in the noise. So this sort of access to the unconscious, athletes like to call it the zone. People call it the zone. Musicians might call it flow. It's like when time slows down, like everything clicks. You perform beyond what you thought you were capable of. And every single one of them, they describe it the same way. It felt like they weren't thinking. It's like they just blacked out and felt like something else took over. That something is your unconscious mind operating without interference from your conscious mind. And in those moments, what you're getting a taste of is what Bradley Cooper had for a few hours at a time in that movie, except you didn't need a pill. You had it for free for a few minutes until the conscious mind came back online and started filling the space with noise again. So, why can't you live in that space? Well, it's because your conscious mind is in the way. Your unconscious is broadcasting on perfect frequency at full power, but your conscious mind is the receiver, and the receiver is full of static. So, it's thinking about, anxiety about tomorrow, regret about yesterday, notifications, news cycles telling you the world's ending, wars, are you going to get nuked? Algorithms are feeding you outrage. The voice in your head is telling you that you're not good enough. You're comparing yourself to strangers on your phone, and you're just filled with fear and doubt. All of it is static, and it's drowning out a signal that would change your life if you could just hear it clearly. Most people live their entire lives in that static. They never experience the signal. And if they do, it's not for more than a few minutes at a time, like in the shower or a moment of flow that they can't recreate. So the signal is perfect, the signal is limitless. The problem is the receiver. Now, here is the thing that should keep you up at night is that there are companies engineering the static, and they know exactly what they're doing. Now, this isn't some conspiracy theory. Look, a few weeks ago, I was reading this article about how Meta and Google lost a landmark court case. Pretty much a jury found them liable for designing their platforms to be addictive to children. Now, this is nothing new. I talk about it on this channel all the time, but people may think I'm just, coming up with some conspiracy theory. But no, this was the actual facts in the case. They were ordered to pay $6 million dollars in damages. But the damages aren't the interesting part. It's the evidence, the proof that led to the guilty verdict. Internal meta documents showed that they knew. All right. So they had this project that was called Project Mist that found the kids most likely to get addicted to Instagram were the ones who had already experienced adverse effects. So, in other words, they targeted the vulnerable kids. And Meta's own internal communications compared the effects of their platform to pushing drugs and gambling. And an Instagram employee wrote that the company was staffed by basically pushers. Now, YouTube, their internal memos described viewer addiction as the goal. So they said the quiet part out loud. But of course, that was a case against kids, and that's why they lost, because the harm to children is easier to prove in court. A child's developing mind, parents testifying, and clear before and after evidence is much easier to win that case. But if they had all that internal documentation about how they manipulate kids, what do you think they have about how they manipulate adults? Now, the court case only showed a sliver of that stuff. They showed the part that helped the lawyers win. But imagine everything that wasn't revealed. Every internal email, every study, every strategy meeting about keeping grown adults scrolling for hours a day. Look around. How many adults do you know who are on these platforms, social media platforms, news platforms, every single day, all day, and they can't put their phone down. I'm not just talking about kids, I'm talking about people in their 60s, their 70s, checking Facebook nonstop, TikTok nonstop. Some of these people used to read books and have real conversations with real people, and they used to be present in their own lives, but now they're just glued to an algorithm. Now multiply that by billions. Okay, because if your individual unconscious is as powerful as everything we just talked about, perfect memory, infinite processing, running your reality in the background, what do you think the collective unconscious is? A billion people all sharing reality together, a billion unconscious minds processing the same inputs at the same time. And that right there, that's the sort of civilization level power being fed constantly every minute of every day. Whatever the algorithm decides a billion people should see, whatever beliefs the platform wants to install, it installs in a billion unconscious minds simultaneously all throughout the day. And those beliefs shape everything. They shape what people vote for, what they buy, who they worship, who they attack, what they think is normal, what they think is possible. This is how you control a civilization without ever firing a gunshot. See, back in the day, the people at the top controlled through force, violence, and war, but that was a little too messy, right? It created enemies, it caused revolts. But if you can control the unconscious, if you can sedate a billion people through their own devices and feed them exactly what you want them to believe, if you can keep them scrolling on this infinite timeline until they can't even think straight, then you don't need violence anymore. You don't need soldiers or prisons, even though they keep making more and more prisons, but you don't even need the prisons. People will willingly hand you their attention, their time, their minds, their money, their loyalty. They'll worship the people draining them. They'll attack the people trying to wake them up, and they'll never riot. They'll never organize. They'll scroll themselves into compliance. That's the game. And think about how rigged this game is. I mean, the court case that exposed all this, it was about Meta, it was about YouTube, Google's own platform. And yet, here I am on YouTube trying to tell you about this, trying to get this message to you, because if I don't create on this platform, it's very likely that I don't reach you. I'm not going to have a voice. Think of the system has been engineered so completely that even the people trying to expose it have to use the tools of the people they're exposing. That's how deep this goes. These companies aren't just manipulating one unconscious mind, they're manipulating the collective unconscious of the entire human species. Every platform you scroll, every single algorithm you encounter, every piece of content that you consume, it's all being shaped by people who know exactly what your unconscious is capable of and have decided that the safest thing for them is to make sure that you never find out. You didn't know you were limitless. They likely knew, and they made sure you never found out. So, if the most powerful companies in the world know about your unconscious mind and they've built an entire economy around keeping you disconnected from it, what do you think happens when you reconnect? See, in the movie Limitless, the pill runs out. There are negative side effects. The people die after they use it for so long. And the power comes from the outside, right? It's a dependency, like with any drug. You need it, someone controls it, they control you. But what we've been talking about doesn't come from outside you. It doesn't run out. It doesn't have negative side effects. No one else can control it if you don't let them. Your unconscious mind is running right now. It's always running. It's eternal. It never stops running. All it knows is to run. Again, perfect memory, infinite processing. It perceives truth directly. It's already limitless. For your entire life, you've probably been looking for the thing that would finally unlock your true potential. The book. I know because I've done it. I've read tons of books. You're looking for the teacher, the system, the supplement, the breakthrough. You've tried it all, meditation, different systems. Some people are searching through religion, some through science, some through self-help, some through money, relationships, approval. Everybody is longing for truth, for meaning, for something that makes sense of it all. And the whole time, you were that thing. You are what you've been looking for. You just forgot where to look. Stay zero. Gnosis.